Hello and welcome to In Pursuit of. My guest today is Kruti Bharucha, founder and CEO of Peepul, and she is in pursuit of
supporting public school systems deliver a high quality education that will enable every child to achieve their potential.
Kruti, tell me, how do you pursue that?
How we do it is to work very deeply with government school systems to co-create, co-design, co-implement programs that will actually improve student engagement in the classroom and actually build that entire ecosystem of support and stakeholders, whether it is the teachers, the school leaders, the academic officials at the district, block, cluster level, the state institutions, everyone aligned towards that common goal of improving student engagement and then improving learning outcomes.
So, Kruti, tell me, what does the name Peepul stand for?
We wanted something to be, something to resonate in Hindi and also in English. So, people, the people tree, but then people also. We are trying to work with all stakeholders to improve the quality of education. We have seen a people tree mostly in every government school. It symbolizes deep roots. It then kind of has a number of branches that, signify children choosing different options. And then there is a lot of kind of wisdom associated with the people tree. Buddha gained enlightenment under the tree. And so there is a little bit of that, deep meaning from an education perspective. I remember the branding organization that was helping us with it said, look, at the end of the day, it's the power of your work that defines you. It's not the name.
You have a lot of programs. And so which one is your flagship program?
The one program that we have that kind of covers everything at the same time is our CM Rise Schools program in Madhya Pradesh. And there, the government conceptualized the program. We've been their primary academic support and monitoring unit. And our support has really been to think about all of the different layers and levers in a school system and actually create exemplar schools or lighthouse schools that can show what's possible
like
in a government school system. But really, schools that are well resourced and have the right type of classroom practices, the right type of culture. This school is no less than a private school.
Right.
And doing it within a period of time where you can show that this is feasible and this kind of quality education can really be transformative for children who are coming from some of the poorest backgrounds, right? Who don't have the advantages and privileges, they don't have the resources and support at home. And so how do you manage that in a school system which operates at scale?
You also have a program which is funded by a DIB. Is that right? It's called the Lifted Assessment Program. Is that what it's called?
The name of the Development Impact Bond is Lifted.
Okay.
We are one of the 4 implementing partners.
Okay.
And our particular intervention is on assessment design and improvement at a systemic level. So, you've seen, for example, in a classroom, there will be certain teaching practices, there will be a focus on some measurement or understanding of where the child is at. What we're trying to do is to help teachers embed ways of assessment for a child, which will help them remediate and focus on the learning needs of every child, which helps them teach more effectively and then the child learn better. Because if you're just teaching without actually doing an assessment of where the child is, then you're not sure how much the child is actually grasping. And at the primary level, some assessment improvement and assessment reform has been tried by at secondary, by CBSE, by many other organizations that are looking to make this happen. It's not really been tested and tried at the primary level. And we think that primary is foundational. And therefore, if you can actually embed this into the teaching practices early on in foundational grades, then you're really building a strong foundation for the child.
So give me an example of what's there in this assessment report, like, how to assess, like when your parameters for assessment, for example.
It's, for example, picking up data on literacy and numeracy, for example. How is the child absorbing a particular concept?
Sure.
What is their retention? Are they meeting the grade level expectations? So the teacher first has to have an understanding of what
is needed.
And then when they deliver that lesson, measurement. And this is what what we say by assessment is not necessarily, exams at the end of the year. In fact, it's not exams at the end of the year.
It's continuous, actually.
It's continuous assessment of the child's learning level, saying on literacy, numeracy, how are they doing? And then feeding back into the strategies to actually help the child. So we have set up this mechanism called data decision making, data driven meetings, right? Where the teacher and the school leader both discuss how the child is doing, how children are doing in their classroom, and then share strategies around how you can perhaps increase a learning level, what is remediation that you can put in place.
Because recently CBSE has sent out the holistic report for the primary schools as well.
Yes.
It's looking at a lot of things at a continuous level.
Yeah.
So, and that's very recent, right? So I'm just curious to know, is this complementary to that?
We support the government. And so anything that comes as a sensible national policy guideline is something that we will then incorporate and integrate into our programs itself.
You're being funded by DIB, and how does this entire thing work? Just because, it's very new to all of us and it's new to our audience as well. I think it's new to India, period.
Results-based financing itself is a relatively new concept. So India had a DIB on a development impact bond on direct education initiatives.
Okay.
This is the second DIB that's been launched, and it's on indirect interventions. It's about working with the system, and therefore you lose some degree of control because you're not working with your own teachers, you're working with government teachers, or you're working with government school leaders, working with government schools to drive some of that change. So this is very unique because you're actually using a results-based financing instrument on indirect intervention.
You are so courageous to take this on because all eyes are on you right now, on the implementing partner. So what made you take that decision that, okay, this is what we're going to go with?
Yeah, there is a huge credibility, reputation risk, right? So you have to be very clear about the work and the team that you have in place and the rigor that you have in your program and your ability to course correct. At the end of the DIB period, if we don't hit our goals, again, all eyes are on us, yeah, people's doing good work, but ultimately it's not really changing anything on the ground. And that then impacts subsequent funding, word on the street about the work that we're doing, about the impact we're having. In this particular DIB construct, what had happened was there was almost like a preamble to the actual DIB years. There was a learning year, right, where we had the opportunity to test out the program. We could see what was working, not working. We could refine it. And then at the end of the learning year, we could then take a call and set those goals and targets more clearly, and then take a call about our participation. If you set unrealistic goals, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting up the whole DIB construct for failure. The second is, I think for us, what mattered a lot was who are the folks around the table, right? Who is this consortium? And how much of a load is it going to be for us to actually manage all the multiple stakeholders in the DIB? Because you've got a performance manager, you've got a third-party evaluation agency, you have the risk investor, you have the outcome funder, and then you have CSR, and you have foundations that are additionally involved, you have a transaction manager. So, I think for us, it was looking around that table for every consortium partner and saying, are we all broadly aligned on the purpose of the DIB? We felt that, we were partnering with the right folks, and everybody had their eye on improving the learning levels for every child and realizing that because it's an indirect intervention, there will be things that will be challenges, there will be government uncertainty, and it's just something that everybody has to work together on and solve together.
It's complex, it is, and it's amazing. And I wish you all the best, and I'm sure it will work out.
The way that some organizations who are part of DIBs look at it is that, you've got foundations and you've got CSR, but in a DIB, you might attract funding from organizations, individuals that would not have otherwise invested in the social impact space. And the reason they are doing it is because they have clarity around goals, they have clarity around kind of the risk and return that their money would get. And so just being able to attract more capital is how a lot of people look at the benefits of the DIB. I think there's also benefits in terms of learning journeys for the organization, right? It's a new instrument, it's an innovative instrument. Learning how to use data. I mean, we're a fairly rigorous organization already in terms of how we think about impact, the data, intermediate metrics. But in a DIB, it's so much more high stakes. And so actually developing that muscle around that learning journey around how to use data to actually course correct more frequently than you might if you were not participating in a DIB.
So tell me, what is a unique challenge for you as an organization?
I think in terms of where we are as an organization, for me right now, it's really making sure that there's enough leadership strength and a leadership layer that's actually going to be able to support the various programs that we have, and also make sure that we are building and growing the organization with the right judgment, so that it's not just me who is actually taking a lot of decisions. So making sure that we have distributed leadership. I think the other thing is also making sure that we're continuing to retain a very positive culture for the organization. So we've grown from, I think around this time last year, we were at about 80 people. We're now at about 210 folks. There might be cultural issues that come in, or individuals join with the ways of working of their previous organizations. They bring their own sense of culture.
Chaos in the culture.
Yeah. So how do you make sure that you have that alignment and that, sense of what the people culture is, and, what we on the leadership team want it to be. So it's the culture part is a tough one, because you can't take your eye off the ball when it comes to culture.
It can actually change an organization completely.
Yeah.
Kruti, one last question is that what is your vision for people? Because now you're scaling, and I'm sure somewhere you feel, oh gosh, it's going fast, right?
Yeah.
But wherever it's going, where is that place where you want to take it?
Thinking about it in the next 3 to 5 years, I think one area for us is to really demonstrate strong impact evidence, right? To really make sure that all of our programs, whatever we do really well, right? Have the organization itself be a proof point around how to make systemic change happen, and actually how to have impact at scale. I think the second is to actually start translating a lot of the good work that we've done at states to actually thinking about what is national policy and education quality interventions. If you work with the center, you're actually having a lot more ability to replicate and share a lot of your learnings with multiple states. So I think thought leadership, which is also something I see as part of our organizational contribution to the ecosystem. I think a third is, as we think more broadly about this entire challenge of improving education quality, is how do you work effectively with government? How do you actually kind of build systems that can lead to systemic change? How can we be a learning and sharing organization that can actually share a lot of this stuff globally?
That's such a wonderful thought, because every time I meet a new entrepreneur, I think that, and I sometimes think that they're doing certain work which could actually be helpful to so many other people. And I always think that how can they, transfer this knowledge? Most people have no time for it.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to make a concerted effort towards it, it's very commendable.
So a couple of things that we've done is first you have to kind of work it into your plans consciously, because it shouldn't be an afterthought. When you're working on particular interventions, for example, you have to codify materials, and you have to make sure that you're capturing that knowledge and not, just letting it fizzle out. The other thing is we are actually developing a knowledge management system. For example, simple things like how do you, ensure success of, or how do you ensure dissemination of a rewards and recognition program? It's a small piece of the entire set of interventions, but codifying how to make that happen.
It's more like an SOP around that.
And then that becomes something that is available to then ultimately shared with, other organizations. I think the thing that we've struggled with is when we're not directly implementing it ourselves, is sharing information enough to bring about change.
I find it very interesting that Peepul is working in so many parts of education and not just one. There are two ways of looking at anything. Is like, it can be very focused on one specific thing, or it can be many things.
Yeah.
And I think you have a bird's eye view of everything, and which is why I think you're able to work towards or have that vision for systemic change also.
You've captured it very well. That's exactly what our approach is.
So thank you so much. It is indeed a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Aparna.